Every 4 years in the West, Muslim communities have the same argument all over again. Should we vote? Is participating in democracy haram? Is choosing the lesser of two evils still shirk? And the strange thing is, both sides of this argument are quoting major scholars to back them up. So today, we settle it. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which scholars say democracy is haram, which ones say it's compatible with Islam, and which third position quietly resolves the disagreement in a way most Muslims have never heard. There's one specific ruling from one of the strictest scholars in modern history that contradicts what people assume he said. We'll get to it. Most viewers expect him on one side, and he's on the other. That single ruling changes the entire conversation. First, the principle that drives every position, because without it, none of the rest makes sense. In Islam, the absolute right to legislate belongs to Allah alone. The Quran states it clearly in Surah Yusuf, verse 40. The ruling is for none but Allah. Scholars call this concept Hakimiyyah, divine sovereignty. It means no human being, no parliament, no king, and no voting majority has the authority to declare what Allah forbade as permissible, or what He permitted as forbidden. This is the bedrock. Every scholar across every position agrees on it. Where they disagree is what this principle implies for living inside a democracy. Position 1. Democracy is haram. Some scholars call it outright shirk. This view comes from major names. The late Sheikh Ibn Baz, former Grand Mufti of Saudi Arabia. Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen, one of the most cited scholars of the last century. The Permanent Committee for Scholarly Research in Saudi Arabia. The historical writer Sayyid Qutb. Their argument is direct. Democracy gives ultimate sovereignty to the people. The people, through their representatives, decide what is legal and what is illegal. They can vote to allow alcohol. They can vote to permit interest-based banking on a massive scale. They can vote to redefine marriage outside of Islamic principles. In each of these cases, a human body is exercising the authority that the Quran reserved for Allah. From this angle, democracy is not just a different political system. It is a structural claim that humans, not God, hold the final word over law. And that claim, in classical Islamic theology, sits in the territory of shirk in legislation. This is a serious position, held by serious scholars, and it cannot be dismissed. But here is where the conversation gets interesting, because the second position is held by scholars just as serious. The second position is led by Sheikh Yusuf al-Qaradawi, one of the most influential scholars of the past century, along with Sheikh Ahmed Kuti of the Islamic Institute of Toronto, and many contemporary scholars dealing directly with Muslims in Western countries. Their argument starts with a careful distinction. They say that what the first position is criticizing is not democracy itself, it is secularism. Specifically, the idea that no higher source exists above human law. That is a philosophical claim, and yes, it conflicts with Islam. But democracy as a process, voting, consultation, accountability, the peaceful transfer of power, separation of powers, all of these are mechanisms, and mechanisms can be used inside any value framework. The Quran itself, in Surah Ash-Shura, names an entire chapter after consultation. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, consulted his companions on major decisions even when revelation had not given him direct instruction. Al-Qaradawi argues that democratic process is the modern continuation of Shura. It is the answer to despotism. It is the protection against unaccountable rulers. And rejecting democracy in principle, in his view, hands Muslim populations over to tyrannical regimes that strip them of every right Islam guaranteed them. In this view, What Muslims are voting on matters. If a country's democracy allows voting on laws that contradict Islam, those specific laws are haram, but the act of participating to reduce harm and protect Muslim interests is not. So you have two strong positions: strict prohibition and conditional compatibility. And now the third position, the one I told you about at the start, the one that quietly resolves the conflict and the one most Muslims have not heard properly. Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen, who is firmly in the first camp on democracy as a system, was asked directly about Muslim voting in countries where they were a minority. His ruling is on public record. He said voting is obligatory, not permissible, obligatory. His reasoning was sharp. He said if good people abstain from voting, evil people take their place, or neutral people who follow whoever shouts loudest. The ruling is that Muslims should appoint whoever they believe is most just, because withdrawing leaves the field open to those who would harm Muslim communities directly. Read that again. The same scholar who considered democracy as a system to be deeply problematic also issued a ruling that voting within that system is obligatory. The Permanent Committee in Saudi Arabia, which holds the strict position on democracy, has similarly encouraged voting in Western countries. This is the third position, and it is held in some form by Islam QA, by the Permanent Committee, by Hanafi fatwa councils, and by major Western imams. The system is critiqued in principle, the participation is permitted and sometimes obligated in practice. So how do you put all three together honestly? Position 1 says democracy as an ideology, the belief that human will is the final source of law, is haram. This is correct because it contradicts Hakimiyyah. Position 2 says democracy as a procedure, consultation, voting, accountability, separation of powers, is compatible with Islam and connects directly to shura. This is also correct because the Quran itself commands consultation. Position 3 resolves the apparent conflict. The ideology of secular democracy is rejected. The mechanism of voting inside it is permitted and often obligatory to protect Muslim communities from greater harms. What this means practically is that a Muslim voter in the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, Australia, or any Western democracy is not committing shirk by going to the polls. They are following the ruling of scholars across multiple schools who recognized that withdrawal from political life leaves the door open to those who would damage Muslim communities, restrict religious freedom, and shape laws that affect every part of a Muslim's career, business, family, and faith. So if this clarified something you've been carrying, drop a comment with which position you grew up hearing: the strict prohibition view, the compatibility view, or the third position you didn't know existed. The next video gets built around the most replied ones. Every fatwa I used is linked in the description. The WhatsApp channel and the Discord are below if you want to go deeper. Sovereignty belongs to Allah. That is not negotiable. But voting to protect your community, your masjid, your school, your business, and your right to practice your deen in peace is not surrendering that sovereignty. It is exercising responsibility inside a system Allah placed you in for a reason. I'm your Islamic friend. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.